Now, the reason that I'm coming up to do this now is that these totally brilliant and wonderful professional clinicians are not always available 24/7, but there is somebody who is usually available 24/7, and that's mom, dad, sister, brother, somebody in the family. So what we're trying to do is, how do you use the family to somehow avert crises and bring things down? Is the family capable of doing that? So I'm the founder and president of the TAR, National Association for Personality Disorder. We're an education and advocacy organization that's been around for 20 years. We brought DBT into New York in 1994, and I've developed a program for teaching families how to use DBT. And then we've integrated DBT, we're trying to integrate TFB, and we do something that most people don't do, which is we integrate neurobiology. One of the reasons we do this is that when the families arrive, having been in a situation with coping with somebody with BPD for an extended period of time, they are confused, angry, powerless, frustrated, and not a very easy person to teach anything to because they're so angry. Additionally, they've gone to clinicians where they have been either directly or by implication blamed for the illness, for the behaviors that they don't know how to control, they don't know what to do. And it's like seeing your child drowning and you try to throw them a life raft and they start screaming a life preserver, and they start screaming at you that the life preserver is the wrong color. So what happens is the family is desperate. So they come to us and we teach them the DBT skills and we teach them MBT. But there's something that we do that is also very different. There are many, many DBT family programs where they teach the family DBT skills. We don't do that. We teach them how to apply DBT skills. For example, if you had a son or daughter who lost a leg in Afghanistan or Iraq, and they had to go for extensive rehabilitation, and they had to learn all kinds of exercises on how to walk and strengthen their muscles so they could get a prosthesis and be able to walk with it. Would you make the parents or the partners learn the same exercises? Or would you teach them how to do the exercises with them so that you would help them accomplish more in their practice of the exercises? Well, that's kind of the attitude that we take. So we teach the families how to actually implement the skills in the moment. Additionally, we have a neurobiological point of view, which Martin is always coming up with new things, so I'm glad to see that ours is kind of parallel. We start out with looking at the person with BPD as hypersensitive and hypervigilant. So the first thing we want to do is bring down that hypervigilance, hypersensitivity. The second thing is that we teach the families with extensive studies, that little teeny studies showing how people with BPD misperceive. And we're totally on board with Martin on how they misperceive their own body reactions. So for example, we teach families that you never start out with a neutral face, because Donegan showed us that neutral faces are interpreted by people with BPD as angry, and usually they think that the person they're looking at is angry with them. So we talk about changes in perception. After that, we look at the prefrontal cortex where decision-making goes on, and by that time, with wrong perceptions and over-exaggerated hypervigilance and hypersensitivity, the prefrontal cortex is gone, it goes offline. So to expect the person to use reasonable and thinking behavior at that point is ridiculous. So if the family is going to sit there and say, well, you know, you shouldn't be breaking a window, that is not really good behavior, and you could go to jail, the person's not going to listen to them at all because they're totally in emotion mind. So we teach the family these skills, and we emphasize something such as, when you do this, I feel this. So we try to get the family to teach the person with BPD the reaction of their behavior on the family member. And I remind you before we begin that the family is the attachment figure. and they can stimulate more volatile reactions than anybody else, and they do. So you have to be aware that you're going to stimulate more reaction, and you have to be ready to deal with those reactions. Additionally, the family is the one that gets the suicide calls and the suicide threats. And Marcia taught me very well that you don't take them to the hospital every time they say they want to kill themselves. So we have to teach families a tremendous amount of anti-intuitive things to do. It's very hard to say to a parent when a kid is saying, I want to kill myself, to say, well, gee, that must feel awful, what happened, rather than, oh my God, let's go to the emergency room. So we have a real hard job, but the neurobiology is the doorway that lets us do this because it brings down the family anger. So should we begin? I get very nervous when I do this, so I'm going to do it just for a short while. Not when you're in front of you three. Regina, what's the matter? What's going on? What are you doing?
Mom, do you have any wine?
Wine? What's going on? It's
Don't ask me all these questions. Just do you have any fucking wine? You always have wine.
It's 2 o'clock in the morning. Why am I going to open a bottle of wine? What are you doing here?
Why did it take you so long to answer the door? You can see I was upset.
Well, you know, I can see you're really upset. Must be annoying to come to the door and I don't answer it. But hello, I'm sleeping.
Oh my God, Mom. You know what? I don't even want to talk about it. John
What happened?
I had sex with John. So where's the fucking wine?
You had sex with John? I thought you separated and getting a divorce.
Don't remind me.
Help me out. I don't understand. What's going on?
Mom, he left. He packed everything up. And then he said he had to come for his mail. So, you know, what do you want me to tell you? I mean, that's it. And you know what? I'm so humiliated. I am so humiliated. You know what? If you're not going to give me any wine, I'll go.
You know, I can only imagine that him coming in for the mail after he's running around with that 22-year-old floozy. That must have been infuriating. I would have been angry too. But how's getting some wine going to solve the problem, and how did having sex with him solve the problem?
You know, you're asking me too many questions. First of all, it was humiliating that he came for the mail. But, you know, it was around 10 o'clock at night, and I was lonely, and we just started talking, and, you know, we kind of remembered some of the good times we had, and so I asked him if he wanted to sleep together.
You know, Regina, most people who are getting a divorce have big, long histories, and anybody would have felt that way. I mean, for heaven's sakes, I mean, are you going to beat yourself up because you had sex with a man you've lived with for 30 years? It's not exactly like you picked him up in a bar or something.
Well, you know what, Mom? It was, you know, I can't even believe I'm talking about this with you. I just can't believe it. You know, you know, this is just too much. And I know you have wine somewhere and you're just not giving it to me, but, you know, it was good. It was good. It was really good. We haven't had sex in a long time. And you know, to have him next to me, and
that must have felt really good.
It did feel good. And fuck that little 22-year-old. But you know what? It felt good.
Well, you got some relief, and do you think it was his intention to hurt you when he came by for his mail, or his intention to go back with you, or why do you think he came for his mail? Do you think maybe he just needed his mail?
Well, that was strange, 10 o'clock at night, that he would come for his mail. I didn't think of that. That was strange.
You know what? I think that I agree with you. 10 o'clock at night is kind of hard for you to be UPS or the FedEx. I mean,
but Mom, you know what? When it was over, he got up and he went. He left, and I was left alone in the bed, and it was humiliating. It was humiliating, because here he is, leaving me. You know, you just don't fucking get it. It hurts. It's painful.
It would hurt anybody. I could see the hurt on your face. I really get that it was hurtful, but how do you think that John felt when he found himself in bed with you after running around with a 22-year-old floozy? What do you think he was feeling at that moment. And what do you think?
Well, he did say it reminded him of when we first got together.
So that was a real positive memory, and yet at the same time, he's doing all these things that are so hurtful. How do you think he felt? What do you think was going on in his head?
I don't know, that's strange, because when he got dressed, he kept like walking back and forth. I don't know, what are you thinking? What are you thinking? What are you trying to tell me?
I'm not trying to tell you anything, I'm just kind of thinking about, trying to understand what went on, because
Are you judging me because I slept with him? Is that what you're thinking again?
I wouldn't judge you for that. I mean, that must feel awful if you think I'm judging you. I think you did a perfectly natural thing that most people would do.
I mean,
But
I was married for 30 years.
But I just think that it must have been very confusing for him to have had good sex with you and to be close with you when he's in the middle of causing so many problems. He must have been embarrassed himself. Had you ever thought of that? Have you ever thought about how he was confused in the situation? You look absolutely stunned.
I'm actually, I didn't think of that. So what do you think I should do? Do you think I should call him up now? I mean, I could call him now.
It's 2 o'clock in the morning, so maybe we could spend some time talking about it and we could kind of digest it and think about it again in the morning. But what?
Can I stay over tonight?
Oh,
Because I'm really
absolutely,
upset.
of course. I mean, you must be really upset and lonely, and
I am.
absolutely.
I don't want to go back there right now. I mean, it's
I can see that. Why would you want to be alone
a
after
little
all this?
embarrassing to be here with my mother sleeping over. I mean, it's a little embarrassing, but you
Well,
don't mind, do you?
we can make it a secret and we'll both never tell. How's that?
All right.
Smile. I'm glad to see a smile there. Well, that's good. But I mean, I think you got to think about how John felt about all of this. And tell me something. Would you like to go back with him? Or it seems sometimes that you're so angry with him. Remember last week when you smashed his windshield?